right, let me lower this. What is going on, guys? We are back for the Let's Talk Battlefield podcast. I'm your host, Echo Limits, and with me today I have Izzy.
Oh, how's it going, everyone? My name's Izzy. If you want to check out my channel and stuff, it's youtube.com/IzzyGoneCrazy.
Also got Mambo.
Thanks.
Mambo B on Twitch TV, memories, laughs, and more. Check me out over there on Twitch.
Awesome. And I got Flakfire with me as well.
Hey everyone, it's Flakfire. If you're interested in Battlefield 1 history, you can look at youtube.com/FlakfireGaming.
All right, awesome. And to kick things off, I want to just start by saying thank you guys for all the awesome support we've received for the podcast and the conversations that we have here. It does mean a lot to all of us. We do this out of love for the game, and we do it for the community and for everything that we can improve Battlefield about. I want to start off by giving you guys, as always, the 4 topics we chose to talk about, and you can also think about your own topics that you want us to answer or have a discussion about towards the end during the chat session of the podcast. But quick reminders. First of all, if you do have a question, you're watching this recorded, and you want us to address it, you can send us your questions over to the Let's Talk Podcast at gmail.com. And we will read it off towards the end of the podcast and hopefully give you some good answers. I don't know. The other thing is, of course, we're on iTunes. You can watch us there. You can watch the recording, which has the video, or you can just listen to the audio version, or you can catch up on the YouTube channels, Izzy or Flak. They usually post it up, and you can join in the conversation there. So starting off with today, the first topic we got for you guys is one that I chose myself. It's something I've been thinking about thanks to Flak's channel. I met someone there, and he had an idea about what's going on with Battlefield. We all know that the player base is kind of getting smaller as the game progresses. So his thought was, what should DICE change in Battlefield once the player base becomes smaller over the span of BF1? That's the topic number 1. Then we're gonna have Flak talking about what future behemoths should DICE make, followed by Izzy's topic, what does the lack of season pass in Star Wars Battlefront II mean for the future of Battlefield? And finally, we're gonna have Mambo's pre-patch notes and thoughts. There's a bunch of new things going on in CTE, things that we even feel like as a community should have been addressed, and they're going to be addressed finally. So that's some cool thoughts right there. All right, so can we get a sound check and so we don't mess this one up? Does the sound, is it all mixed in? Awesome. So just give me a thumbs up in the chat so we know that you guys can hear it pretty good. You guys can hear it too? Izzy, you good?
Seems good to me.
Okay, great. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into the topic. You guys know how it works, and we're just gonna join in with our conversation here. I've been dying to talk to you guys about some Battlefield because it's a lot of good news surrounding what's happening and a lot of good changes coming. So as I said, the first topic, what should DICE change in Battlefield once the player base becomes smaller over the span of Battlefield 1? And I say this, because knowing that every Battlefield that's come out to date, at least I think, maybe some of the earlier ones kind of grew in player base, but generally the game comes out, it sells, and then the player base plays it, and eventually, it tapers off with other games coming out, or, people losing interest due to maybe not as much content as they've hoped for, or other reasons. So with this being said, just looking at and speaking to, I forget who it was, I should have probably wrote it down, Flak, it was a comment on your channel, and just being on that topic, I was talking to this person about operations, and even in my stream I've had people, did you guys meet anybody talking about that they're not able to get games of operations?
I've had a few people come into my channel saying they can't get in operations. What's going on?
Yeah, and did you ask them like what platform they're on?
Yeah, some of the guys were saying they were Xbox and PC, so I noticed a little longer delay lately to get into an operations game, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've noticed a little delay too, and on PS4 the player base is, the largest when it comes to that. But there was a couple of those things that I was thinking about. Like Battlefield, increasingly as it's been going on, has added more and more game modes and more maps, and the player base, if it's getting smaller, there's less and less people per each game mode, per each map. You know what I'm saying? So then it's like, how do we combat that? Any thoughts, guys? What did you guys think?
I can start things off. What I think they should do is break up the DLCs into more of them, but smaller DLCs, and release them closer together to keep people interested, to keep people hyped and coming back to the game. If you just have one large or somewhat large DLC, like every 5 months in between DLCs, there's a lot of time for people to burn out and go to other things. So if you had one, let's say, every month or every other month, I think that would really help the player base stay steady throughout, because people would have things to look forward to, things to come back to. But I just simply think there's way too much time between content added to the game.
I would agree with Izzy on that. In particular, when we had the game release, it was like what, 6 months or something until the first DLC came out. It was like an egregiously long time for that. And I think a lot of people felt that it got stale. I mean, not in the sense like there wasn't enough content. I just think 6 months is a really long time to go before you get to that. So I do agree in that regard. And I think taking a step back away from the model of paid DLC that they, have been doing would be a step in the right direction, because people would then have something, they might only have one map every month, but at least they have something new every month, and since, Battlefield came out, we have had a couple maps. We had Giant Shadow, and that did do a little bit to kind of bridge the gap between release and the first major DLC pack. You got Nivelle Knights on the way, so that's something else. But I think, if they went the route of, a map a month, and keep adding little things here and there, that's good. At the same point,
but my thought,
I want to say that
my thought, Flak, is because they're adding more and more maps, right? So there has to be players for each map. But then eventually, what if you have to oversimplify the situation, if you had 100 players and you had 10 maps, how many people can you put on a map, But now if you increase the maps and more game modes, now that 100 players would have to be split up more and more per each thing, eventually where there's not enough to even have fun in each of those servers. So I'm worried about that as a thing, as a key way to consolidate it.
I see that as an issue there. At the same point, I think the longer Battlefield goes on, in particular with Battlefield 1, that more people are going to come back. They did that with Battlefield 4. Battlefield 4 still has a pretty healthy player base. Especially with the next major game from
it's surprisingly
EA is going to be Battlefront, right? And not everybody who likes Battlefield is going to enjoy Battlefront, and they're going to come back for that experience. I just want to say that. But also with what you were saying, I think stretching out the player base over a lot of different maps and game modes isn't necessarily a good thing. At the same point, I think DICE is doing it right in that regard, because they're going to be introducing platoons here soon. They're going to be introducing a lot of stuff that is oriented towards the community, and it's the community, when you get to the bottom line, that continues to play the game over time. So if you give them the tools to kind of let them play the way that they want to play, they'll stay. They'll stay. So.
But I think the problem there is they're adding it all so late into the life cycle of the game. Like platoons and that stuff, it should have been there from the beginning to encourage people to stay. The whole waiting until the player base dwindles, they didn't rush to add content that should have been there from the start, seems like it's a constant with DICE, and I really think it hurts Battlefield.
I agree with it's that. Not so much a constant, but it's just there. It's just been
it was
MO,
there with
MO
3
lately.
and 4 and Hardline, and now 1. That seems like a constant.
Latest releases, they have had a struggle in that aspect, and I don't know if it's the pressures of putting the game out when they have set a schedule, You know, obviously they have a schedule, they have to meet deadlines. And it might be a result of that. And I also agree with you guys. I don't think that's a good idea. But we had a comment in here by Margera. It says getting fed up with bugs that shouldn't be there, like getting stuck on a rock or being on a cannon and not being able to get off of it and stuff like that. And you know, when I read a comment like that, and I'm always playing, and I always get these little dumb things like, yeah, I watched you Mambo stream like a few days ago or the other day, and you were like, my guy needs some like climbing shoes, please. Remember that? And it's just that day that, no, he couldn't climb rocks for some reason.
Yeah.
They
But
had
I-
the same problem in 4 until they added like the smooth movement system, so like you could go over little ledges without getting stuck. And then they
Yes.
just didn't put that in Battlefield 1.
I
Like,
don't know,
ugh.
but see now that's little things, and like when you're pumping out maps so fast, so many, you're not addressing the little things. For the majority, I would say these maps play well, and they work fine. But they're better than a lot of maps. Battlefield 4 did not have as good maps as Battlefield 1.
I would disagree with that one, just as like a personal preference of map design.
I'll say this much: there's no map I hate in Battlefield 1, other than like Giant Shadow, which is like that was an afterthought. But in Battlefield 4, I mean, you have like Langkang Dam. That map is horrid.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, that one's not great.
That
But
was
I'd rather
just-
play
that's
some of
just
those
terrible.
maps than.
And I
in the
can't,
one-
I can't,
one.
at least, I can't, in Battlefield 1, I can't say none of the maps are horrid. Except for Giant Shadow. And I know Mambo likes it. That's his opinion.
I would agree with that and say that, you know, probably Battlefield 1 has the best maps out of the Battlefield games that I played.
Well, yeah.
Hardline
I
had
would-
great maps.
I would disagree. I think
Hardline
Hardline
did
had
have great
awesome
maps.
maps.
Battlefield 3 had really well designed maps.
It did.
Operation Metro, Grand Bazaar, Scenic Crossing. It had some really well designed maps.
Yeah, but
All
there's
the
a
Close
lot of
Quarters
forgettable
DLC.
ones.
Yeah, that's okay too. But they had some good ones.
Well, what I'm trying to say is, based on that comment from Margera, I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong, Margera. I'm really, like, that's a confusing name. But I like that comment and think it's interesting because I feel like if they pumped out maps slower, put more emphasis, we would get like more polished, so you don't get these little frustration moments when you're trying to jump over a rock and your character just says no. You do it
Well,
3 times.
And there's also something to be said about things from like a marketing standpoint too. You know, in the last podcast we talked about, you know, is Battlefield killing the hype by using the CTE to basically check the
Market.
maps and this and that. And it's like, well, if you put out a map every month or put out some kind of new content every month, at least people have something to talk about every month. Like it makes the game more relevant because people are talking about the new content that would come out for it. But
That's
you know,
very true.
I think that would be a good thing to consider, you know, and hopefully because we got premium friends coming, maybe in the future that'll be something that they'll do in some of the next Battlefield games.
No,
Yeah,
my
they did
feeling,
pilot it.
my feeling on on Battlefield 1 to help out the player base, the way it currently stands is I don't play 64-man operations. I only play 40-man operations just
Really?
because I feel like I can plan my flank routes a little better.
Yeah.
Just give us 40-man operations. Don't give us 64-man. 64 is just nuts, in my opinion. I don't know.
I've used to play
I don't know how you guys
40s,
feel about
just like you, Mambo, for that solid reason, similar reason. But I switched to 64 because they upped the tickets, and it kind of still is okay. It's just kind of so crazy you keep shooting. But I see where you're coming from. I would also like them to get rid of one. But the question becomes, which one do you get rid of? Because someone's going to get unhappy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think moving on into the future of Battlefield that they can sustain having one game mode split into 2 player bases. It's just kind of like a weird decision.
And here's another thing too, right? They're supposed to be going with this higher tempo of releasing patches and stuff. You know, if you were to, you know, every patch that comes out has a new map in it.
That goes with what Izzy was saying. Make the DLC spread out over months.
Yeah, instead of, well, that's like going into a whole different model, and I think we're gonna get into that topic when Izzy comes up with his. I don't want to stray too far from my idea. Was really just saying this is what we have. You know, how do we make what we have work with a with a declining player base. You know, because the facts are there. You know, no matter what you're gonna look at it, the Battlefield player base is going to decline to the point where it's just gonna maintain. You know, it's got like, I don't even know if it's logarithmic, you know, or exponentially decaying, but it's just in an aspect. I don't think it's gonna die indefinitely. It's gonna cap at maybe 40,000 on PlayStation. The PC, unfortunately, I mean, it seems like the interest is really going down there. It's probably due to like PC crowd likes their hyper competitive games. They also like their I don't even know what would you call a
Battle
player
Royale.
unknown. Yeah, it's a battle royale style. That's what they call them.
You talking about Battlegrounds? Yeah, the Battle
Yeah, yeah.
Royale.
Or like the H1Z1. I think it's all the same stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a similar concept basically. So they seem to gravitate towards that. But you have an Xbox player base and a PlayStation player base who love the game, are consistently playing it, and I think what DICE should first of all do is put operations in that server browser. That needs to happen.
Yeah,
Guys?
I would agree. I can't believe that wasn't there from the beginning.
I
Horrible
think
move.
that is important to have in there as well, because it's a side effect of what we're talking about, but it's like one of the most obnoxious things is for me to wait, because operations, at least in my experience, it loads longer than a standard conquest map.
Yeah.
So it's like I sit there and I wait for 5 minutes for this map to load, and then it's like I'm in this room by myself.
Every time
Yeah.
almost, at least for me. Like, and then I have to quit and do it all over again.
Why can't they give you information about the server you're joining at the beginning?
Because it's not in the server browser.
Yeah, all right. Of course, you know, but I think they need to do that. I don't know. I don't think they will go back on their word and consolidate 40 to 64, because I've seen some people in the chat saying I love 64, and some people saying I love 40, and I totally understand why you would love either. But I think if you put it in a browser, I think it'll work out so much better. And I, for myself, I ran a 2 years straight. I ran a rush server in Battlefield 4, and I know I'll be picking that one up. And I already did once pick up a BF1 server, but we didn't use it because you couldn't make operations to a server. So come on, DICE, that needs to happen. I feel like that's one of the biggest things. How do you guys? I just wanted to throw it out there before we jump to the next topic. This kind of pertains to what I was thinking about too, because it segments the player base somewhat. Do you guys feel? How do you guys feel about the custom servers? You know,
I like
eye to
them,
eye.
but I think you need to be able to join them through quick match. There needs to be a option, otherwise they're going to remain empty on console.
Dude,
Because
they're
while I
empty.
think a lot of us use server browser, I think more people quick match.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they're going in the right direction by adding more features and things to that, but yeah, like you need to be able to do it via quick match or find some kind of system that works for that. Otherwise, I mean, it's from a business standpoint, like nobody's going to keep renting servers if you don't put anybody in them.
Yeah.
Like, why would I rent a server if nobody uses it?
Yep.
So it's imperative that DICE figure that out so that they can get people onto the servers that other people, are paying for.
Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, like, PlayStation 4 has the largest player base, and I was trying to play an eye to eye, whatever, because I wanted to get the elite shotgun thing. So I was like, you know what? Let's just jump in a server where there's just nothing but shotguns and get it over with. You know? I couldn't find the server full. And we're talking, there's 50,000 plus players logged in. Mind you, probably they're trying to keep people within their own zone, so shouldn't really. I'm on the East Coast, so it's probably trying to. If someone was playing eye to eye in like Asia, they're probably trying to keep us in separate servers, right? That's my understanding. But I just felt like that kind of blows, and I know people like the what's the other custom match people love? With the rifles that are for the factions.
Standard issue.
I actually thought that was cool.
It was an interesting idea. I thought it played pretty well.
I'm waiting for them to do that for operations. I would totally love it.
I would like to play Frontlines on Nivelle nights with that mode. That would be a fun game mode.
You're an oddly specific man.
Hey, I just think that I look at that map and I'm like, this is what it should be for.
No, but I understand where you're coming from, and DICE try to mix up the game by putting these custom servers, and to an extent it works, but it also, these servers are they showcase what the death of a game feels like. You know what I mean? When you try to play something and then there's just nobody.
I think another thing that they could do is put more DICE devs playing randomly in servers. And if
I don't
you
think
get them,
that would help much.
they could acknowledge, hey, we're out there playing with you guys. You know, they could send out a
They
tweet.
do. You know what's cool? I've got a chance to participate in DICE versus the community kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there was one other thing like zombies kind of thing where the DICE devs and people with DICE dog tags, they can use shotguns. Everybody else is trying to knife them. It was a little bit of fun, and you know they do Friday night Battlefield. I wish it
Right.
wasn't on Friday night because that's when I spend with my girlfriend. But all right, you know, Friday night Battlefield. So they do stuff like that. But the problem with that, Mambo, is like if a DICE dev joins your server, how do you know?
No.
Maybe they could put a message on the screen, DICE dev in your game. Something
Or
pop
make
up.
that
They put
guy
their name
glow like a
red
god.
on the leaderboard or something.
Well, when Platoons is implemented, if they made a platoon that, you know, was a private platoon, they could have their little 4 letters DICE there, and that, you know, could
That's
be
true.
a thing.
Well, we know that 4-letter combinations are gonna be. No, they're not gonna be taken, right? They're gonna let anybody have a 4-letter combination, though, right?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's the greatest idea either.
Neither do I, and I know they got a lot of backlash from that. I saw one of the devs tweet out like they were gonna open up Platoon so you can have multiple of the same name and stuff, and they got like immediately dissed for that. So I don't know if they're gonna reverse that decision, but everyone was like, "No, please, no," like instantly.
Oh yeah, Joe says in the chat says humans versus zombies BF1 event was yesterday and there's no password, so people were kicked constantly because people don't know. They were probably just shooting around, and you know only the
Yeah.
DICE people are supposed to be shooting a shotgun. Yeah, but how do you do all that stuff when there's no server password? We've said this in the past. This needs to happen. This needs to happen ASAP. All right. I don't know what's going on with them, but I think we discussed some pretty great ideas how to consolidate it. You know, operations being in a server browser, and just the emphasis on what you already kind of have. Build up what you have rather than continuously build up more, and then have
Right.
very few people playing in. So I think we're gonna now switch on over to the next topic, and the next topic is by Flak. Flak, tell us what you got.
Okay, so, well, and if you guys subscribe on YouTube, you know this, but I did a video about, okay, you know, historically, what are the different kinds of behemoths DICE could still add to Battlefield 1? And there's a whole bunch of different ones out there, but, you know, we did get the Char2C as part of They Shall Not Pass, and we don't have any other details about the upcoming DLCs, like In the Name of the Tsar, Turning Tides, and Apocalypse. We don't know anything, like even if they're going to have additional behemoths in there. I would assume that they probably would, because I think it's a good marketing point and it helps sell that kind of DLC. But there are a number of options out there, and I talked about a few things. You know, there are super heavy bombers, there are commerce raider type submarines with some big guns on them, and you know, there are a number of different tanks that are out there. And I was just thinking, you know, okay, you know, what are some of the options out there? And I guess, you know, I'm not expecting you guys to name specific things, but, you know, would you guys be interested in, you know, another large tank, or another variation of the armored train, or even a super heavy bomber?
I want to comment first. I'm in on this one, dude. This is my idea. DICE, if you're listening, a brigade of cavalry that everybody could spawn into that you have to kill, like that come across the map, like mini bees, not necessarily one object, but like a group of cavalry that come in, and you got to kill them all off. If you kill them all off, it waits another 5 minutes, and they come again, like 2 waves. So people can spawn in on those cavalries as super cavalries, and you got to kill all those cavalries off to help turn the tide of the battle.
What happens
Mambo,
if you just
Mambo.
like go into a building?
What?
You just hide in a building. Like,
Well,
you
they'll
wait
get
for them to
grenades,
bored.
you know, they'll just break apart. Mambo, I have your idea, but I'm gonna dial it up a notch. I was
right.
doing some serious research, man. I was like on there, you know, typing up and looking at like what really happened in World War One. And the crazy things people did in World War One, I was like, yo, this is our opportunity to get really stupid with like an FPS game. Because World War One was crazy. There was a battalion of bicycle riders. Just like you
You mean
said,
a bicycle
dude, they
battalion?
lined up
Back
all on
with this
bicycles and they were pedaling and shooting.
Several
It was
battalions
crazy.
of bicycle troops. And actually, I did the one video recently on Operation Albion, and they were key to the German success in that operation. And that's one of the maps that's going to be featured in the Name of the Tsar. But no, bicycle troops are like really cool, and they continue to use them in some countries. Like bicycle troops, they still use today. And I was reading the comments on there, and like bicycle troops would be real interesting for the sole purpose of, and I would say if you put this in the game, like you have to, you know how like cars have a horn
Yeah.
in the game. I want to hear just a little ring ring, you know, with the like right after you road kill somebody, like that would be amazing.
You know, but I think it's a cool idea, Mambo. I do think they could probably play around rather than just try to look for big, heavy machinery. They could play around with, ever since they did that as like a behemoth for
They shall not pass.
yeah, they shall not pass at the
Verdun
heights,
Heights and-
Verdun Heights. Yeah, that's cool. You get multiple elites, and then this would spawn multiple horsemen. Cool.
Right.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Yeah.
And that's why
I'm a
they would
cavalry
be the
guy,
ones
so
with
I
the
love the
lands,
horses.
because it kind of seems like it would work for the Russian one. Of course, I also looked up the Russian Tsar tank, but Flak, I know you know more about that. Once you fill the people in.
Actually, not much is known about it. Just the thing was basically a giant tricycle, but it supposedly had a wide variety of different weapons on it. So that one I think actually works the closest to what we would consider a behemoth in Battlefield 1. If you're talking like the traditional kind of stuff. The one that I would really like to see added, because we don't have this yet, like everybody remembers the AC-130 in Battlefield 4, where, you know, it was kind of a multi-position type of gunship, right? Or you had multiple weapons on it anyway that you could cycle through. The Russians came up with a heavy bomber, the Ilya Muromets, and it had a wide variety of machine guns. And because they're Russian, they were like, let's try everything on this. And so they put, cannons and different types of sized artillery type of stuff on it. And that would be real interesting. And then you have to get into the question of, well, if you're going to have a big plane, is somebody going to be able to fly it? Because the thing that you don't want to happen is you get some complete noob who winds up in the pilot seat of it and just immediately just runs 10 seconds like enemy behemoth is
down
here.
is up and up is
Yes.
Enemy
down.
behemoth
Oh.
is gone.
Just
like that. So they could conceptually do what they do with the airship, which is limit. You can't go up or down. You can just kind of steer it or whatever. Or they could do it the way the AC-130 did, where it just kind of circles a
I think they
particular
would have
place.
to circle.
Which, I just think it would be interesting. It would add something new and a bit of a wow factor there to that. So I think that would be interesting. I really want to see the submarines, or submarines in general. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was looking at that too, and I think the plane is kind of a no-brainer. I think it would diversify the whole battlefield. It'd be cool.
I would kind of like to see a giant tower on one of the maps, kind of channel some Ubisoft for a second. So you have a giant tower, but the behemoth is a hot air balloon that is attached to the top of the tower that goes way up in the air. You can have like 4 people up there with MGs or high-powered snipers to shoot at everyone on the ground for a little while. It might be fun. It's a to change up instead of having like a controllable behemoth. Just get some good snipers.
On this note here, and this is for you, Echo, a very interesting device. During World War I, they invented man-lifting kites. So they would actually have, it was really like a string of several kites.
Did they strap it to their underwear and give them a big wedgie when they went?
Yeah,
basically,
probably.
no, but they would be up in the air and able to observe what was going on. It was kind of like an alternative to some of the observation balloons, but the French and British used it, I believe. And it's like, there are pictures of it out there, and I look at that and I'm like, no, I would not do it. But yeah, that would be interesting too.
So, I mean, having that cavalry for the Russians could be very plausible, right? Having the Tsar tank could be plausible. And the Russian airplane, that's pretty plausible for Behemoths, right?
So there you go. The next DLC's, Dice. Put it in there. Let's get it going.
One of those could easily be. And then I thought about the Turning Tide one, since it has so much of a naval thing. I'm pretty much on board with you, Flak. I think they're going to do a U-boat for a Behemoth. Because there were U-boats with cannons, so it would still work.
That's the thing. Like, I really look at some of the maps that are supposed to be coming, and like, well, I don't know how they couldn't do a submarine, and there were some questions about, well, how would a submarine work as a behemoth? And it's like, well, if you go with the ones that I showed in the video, they have several different gun positions, and they have torpedoes and heavy machine guns on them, and there was some pretty impressive stuff. So that would work in that sense. And again, like the airplane, it would be something new. And so that's the thing that I would like to see, some of the really big tanks there, but at the same point, it's like, well, we have a behemoth tank already. Give me something new, At the same point, like if they put the Tsar tank in the game, I'm just gonna crack up and think that it's the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, through all this, we still don't know if they are gonna have any more behemoths. But if I remember correctly, they didn't announce that there was gonna be a new behemoth for quite a while with the French DLC. Like, that actually came after they announced the DLC. They just said, something big lurks around this city, and like that's all that they said. There wasn't anything about specifically, hey, we're adding another
when they announced the
behemoth.
maps. I thought they gave us a picture of it when they announced the maps, didn't they?
Well, they did, but that was after they announced the DLC.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I would suppose that we'll know more in the next few weeks or so, but.
Yeah, I thought about all these and I went through them each, and the only thing I'm at a loss is the last one's called Apocalypse, and they kind of say there's gonna be a lot of makeshift stuff, and I just don't know what a behemoth in that DLC would even look like.
A cardboard box, maybe. I don't know.
Cardboard box.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
That's a good question.
I think maybe that one will probably be more infantry type stuff, or maybe it'll look at some of the things like maybe the Kavag and the really big super tank type of thing, because that was a pretty desperate development there for the Germans.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And that's when I started researching a lot of weird stuff in World War One. Like the weird armor suits they built, like totally crazy stuff. And then like the weird makeshift weapons that they've had. Like, it just seems like this is an opportunity for an FPS game to do something so different, and it will look cheesy because all of them look cheesy. There was like this thing with the megaphones where you can like hear more. It was like weird. It was like a mask you put on and like little glasses so you could see farther. And these people were thinking like, this will help me pinpoint where the bombs are being dropped. But it looks so stupid,
Well, at the same point, I think DICE is smart that if they are going to do this makeshift stuff, that they do it for Apocalypse, that they do it for the final DLC, because at that point, they can be like, hey, we're just having fun now. And I think a big selling point and a big thing of what defines Battlefield 1 is all of the prototype and experimental stuff. And there are people out there like me who, just get really excited because you're like, oh, they actually, went out and they found that and they modeled it in game, like being real excited to see the Hell Regal in Battlefield 1, because it's like that existed for such a small time in the real world. Only 3 photos of it are basically known to exist, and they went out and they made it. So that's probably what I'm excited for most about Apocalypse. But yeah, I can't wait to see what behemoths they manage to pull together for that, if they put another behemoth in there.
Yeah, I think for the Apocalypse one, since there seems like it's not really so much of a setting, they're not picking a country or something. I think it might be plausible that they're gonna go the route of like something Mambo said, maybe like an elite squad up, guys. We're the dudes, and then they'll give them something like that. I swear they gotta make the bicycles happen. And I saw Zero in the chat was like, can we get camos for bikes, please?
Yes, I want camels really bad. I wanted them for a while.
On my
they
bicycle.
show up in the concept art. So hopefully we get camels. But
Awesome. Are we ready to switch off to Izzy's topic, Flag?
yeah, let's do it.
Izzy, take
All
it
right,
away.
guys. My topic. So my topic is, what does the lack of a season pass for Star Wars Battlefront 2 mean for the future of Battlefield? Of course, Star Wars Battlefront is being developed by DICE and published by EA, so it's going to impact Battlefield. We already saw that Battlefield 1 was obviously influenced by Star Wars Battlefront. We can see some similarities right there. So we can pretty much guarantee that the next Battlefield will have maybe some shared features with Star Wars Battlefront 2, which means maybe the next Battlefield won't have a season pass. Fingers crossed. I think that will be a really good thing, but let's open up the conversation, see what everybody has to say about it.
Well, for me, looking at that, and I wanted to say this because I feel like we should bring it up at some point. I don't want to, completely derail the conversation because it just started. But I think that that's great that it looks like it's not going to have a season pass. And at the same point, I 100% agree that hopefully with the next Battlefield game, there won't be a season pass. And at the same point, we just had the announcement for Call of Duty World War II. And right there on that PS4 box art said PlayStation 4 gets 30 days early access to DLC packs. And so that doesn't confirm the DLC is paid, but it basically says, hey, Activision is still going to keep going this same route. So I think it bodes very, very well for Battlefront and for the Battlefield franchise in the future in terms of, their competition. Like, yeah. I think it's something we've been asking for a really long time. Like, please just find a way to do this. Even if we have to, pay for cosmetics or, whatever,
yeah,
keep the community together. And they appear to be listening to that, and their competitors aren't. And if, their competitors want to completely run themselves into the ground, that's their decision. But I think for us as consumers and as members of the community, that is a fantastic thing.
Yeah,
I would totally agree.
I think EA's killing it right now, and they need to keep this Steam engine rolling, What's interesting is, though, I don't know, I've peaked this, and it piques my interest because I always look at the whole PlayStation Xbox thing. EA went really heavy with Xbox with Battlefield 1. I mean, every advertisement, everything was Battlefield related, was Xbox, play on Xbox, right? There's always that splash screen. For Battlefront, they're going kind of heavy for PlayStation. Did you notice that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All their promotional materials just said PlayStation and all this other stuff. And
that's because PlayStation gives them money because they want it to be first because that helps their sales. I'm sure Xbox threw money at EA
for that one.
That's because PlayStation stole Call of Duty from Xbox.
Interesting. So, but I'm same way as you guys. I'm hopeful. The one thing I think it clearly will mean is, let's just end the trend of every single Battlefield game when it comes out that the player base is just going to always taper off until the part where this just the die-hard Battlefield players.
Exactly. Well, I think the DICE is starting to adapt to I don't know, the new meta of the gaming industry, the whole one and done game thing is becoming less and less of a trend, and games are now being supported for years at a time versus just 1 year and they release another game. Instead,
Mm-hmm.
they are constantly updated for several years. And this has become what's become a growing trend within the gaming industry. And some of the biggest games today are like that. And I think DICE and EA have finally caught on to that. And hopefully they'll start to make the shift. Because I think it's better for players, better for the community, content creators. I think overall it's a better model.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna happen. Just the one thing that always keeps in my back of my mind is how they're gonna figure out trying to give us all of this content that we've been getting. You know, we get a lot of content when it comes to FPS game versus the games that give your DLC for free. They usually have half, if not less, content.
I would disagree with that. It depends on the game. It entirely depends on the game.
I mean, I'm
At the
thinking
same
direct
point-
competition. You know.
Didn't Titanfall has free DLC, free
Yeah,
maps,
but it gets one or two map. I don't even know how many maps it's gotten.
does that
one,
mean the
two.
next Battlefield, if they adopt that model, is going to
Free
have less
maps?
maps?
I mean, maybe at the same point here, you know, I think Echo's right in some ways that, you know, if we are going to go this route, we don't necessarily want to have less content, you know, and I think all of us here, like, we don't mind paying for things post-launch, you
Yeah.
know. We understand that it takes money to make additional content, you know,
Right.
and I look at They Shall Not Pass, for example, and I think it was totally worth the amount of money. I mean, because I enjoy every single map on there, and I really enjoy those maps. Like, those are excellent, well-designed maps. You know, a couple little balancing issues here and there, but for the most part, I thought they were great. I thought the guns were great. I thought, you know, I looked at it, and it has been a long time since I sat there and was like, you know, I feel like I got my money's worth for that DLC. And I feel that way for They Shall Not Pass.
Yeah.
So in terms of, you know, if we do go the route of getting, you know, one map every month or something, and to their credit, again, Echo mentioned it, that is what Titanfall is doing. I think Titanfall launched at a terrible time, and had they
Yeah.
picked a different time, they
Unfortunately.
would be doing a lot better. And I mean, they still have a really, really dedicated community, and you know, they're not going anywhere, because they continue to get free content for that game, and they are very supportive of it because that content is free and it keeps their community together.
Right, like what Ubisoft is doing with Rainbow Six. Okay, you buy a season pass, you get to play earlier than everybody else, but
Mhm.
eventually the maps will be for everyone, right?
I don't think
Or-
I'm opposed to that. You guys opposed to stuff like that? Like 1 week,
No.
2 week early access?
wouldn't
I'm
be.
fine with that.
Yeah.
Rainbow Six Siege does it, and it works fine. I
think
mean,
so
it's not
too.
a big deal. So people who buy the season pass get it 2 weeks earlier, then it goes out to the public. I mean, personally, I'd be okay paying $20 for 2 weeks early access. It helps them out. I mean, I get it a little sooner, but then I know
Use those
everyone else
war
is going
bonds
to get it.
to unlock your next character or your next gun, something.
How
Use those
about-
war bonds?
How opposed are you guys to the idea that DICE releases maps for free, but you need to purchase them with your in-game credits?
No,
No,
no.
because that kind of negates the whole thing. I mean, there's, you know, something to be said where time is money, right? And it's like, you know, some cunts in like Battlefield 4, like, I still don't have unlocked just because I don't have the time to go and do it. It's something that I feel like it's an all or nothing thing. Like, either, you know, have us pay for
that
them
may
directly
be
or
a
not.
revenue where it can create some sort of revenue for them.
It could,
Cosmetic
but it
stuff.
also, yeah, like,
mean, at the
I'm
end of the
behind
day.
the cosmetic stuff 100%.
It usually
But-
works the best.
The other way of doing it, it also adds like an additional level of, I don't want to say like confusion, but it adds like another level of, well, this is getting more complex.
Right.
And for a lot of people, that makes it less accessible. It's like, you know, we've got the whole ammo 2.0 thing going on, and it's like everybody's pissed about
It's
it, but they don't
confusing
understand it.
as hell.
and it's like they don't really explain that. And I understand that they're trying to make the game better, but if people don't understand it, then it's a problem. And I think that's the same thing you would get into if you said, okay, well, in order to get these maps, you have to buy them with this, or that kind of stuff. I just think no, they should just be there, or you have to pay for them, like one of the two, because at least that's what we're used to doing, right?
Right. I mean, I saw somebody even comment away in the chat. I mean, looking at their new map that they're designing in CTE, they're showing us the map in great detail, which we've discussed last podcast. I'm not a fan of, neither was, I think, Mambo, and just showing off everything, and then it just, I don't know, rubs me the wrong way. But because I like a little mystery. But then they said it's premium only, and I was like, what?
Yeah, that made me instantly get salty. I'm like, why?
I don't.
We should be
understand.
giving maps for free, not reducing the player base again. Yeah.
I have premium. I'm not. I'm probably gonna have access to it, but
Yeah.
it's- I don't know. Is he? I think the future is looking better because of these little changes that they've made with Titanfall, and now they're going to be doing with Battlefront. I think it's going to happen for Battlefield. I think that's going to help the whole community grow. But I just want to know what do we suppose they'll do? Just cosmetic?
I mean, they're gonna have to, if they don't do a season pass, they'll have to make up that money somewhere. So either the game itself will be more expensive at launch, or they would have to sell cosmetic things to make up for the loss of not having premium.
And either of those to me is fine, as long as, and I think DICE is better about this than some companies, but they're still not great at it. Like whatever route they choose, be clear about it and adequately explain it, because like you guys know, because you're content creators too, it's like it's real frustrating for us when we go and we try to make a video about something, or we try to talk about something, and it feels like we have 70% of the details we need.
Exactly.
Right.
So they
And then
I
people
think they
come and
need to
ask
do-
you,
yeah,
did
and you're like,
they
I
say
don't know.
this? It becomes rumors then, yeah?
Yeah, so like whatever it is, they need just be clear about it, so we can make up our minds.
I saw a comment that says Josh says they can refund premium for everyone who bought it. I know you threw a kappa in there, but I want to comment on that. They really can't, because you can't really track everybody's premium. I don't think so.
No.
But I don't think they even have within their power to refund something like that. And then someone else said, Deuce said the thing is that Neville Knights adds value to premium. And I'm just like,
It does. I
But
mean,
it's-
it does.
to what extent?
Well, and see, the thing is, again, it goes back to what I'm talking about. Like, we don't know anything really about premium friends. Like, is that going to stay now? What is that going to look like? So everybody's upset
Yeah.
that, oh, this Novell Knights map is only for premium. And it's like, we don't even know what premium means anymore. Like,
Okay.
so if and I understand how it works from their point of view, where they've been told they can say some things and they said, this and that and whatever. But it's like, we need to know. In the event that we don't know, everybody speculates, and the outcome of speculation is almost never a good thing.
Right.
No.
So people are upset, Novell Knights is only for premium, and it's like, yeah, but if premium friends stays, then that's totally fine, because then it becomes a solid selling point for premium, and it doesn't feel like, oh, you're not getting anything else. Oh, we're withholding content from the rest of the community because of premium friends becomes a permanent thing. Then it's like, well, you don't have to pay for something, you just have to have a buddy. But again, we don't know, so it's
Right.
it's
I think also
speculation.
Dolomite said that we're speculating that it will only be premium, but they didn't really outright say it. It might just be the fact that premium will get access to it, and then everyone else will get access to it. I don't know. Dolomite, you're probably right. We're not 100% on that. Yeah, everyone's surprised by Black's webcam moving. It's just a magical webcam,
It's zipping
guys.
around over
I
there.
can't turn it off. It won't stop.
It's try it.
I'll move quickly.
And try to catch up at late. Yeah, but I think it's still an interesting thing that they're gonna have to work out. And like I do agree with Flack that they kind of have to just make sure they communicate it completely. Communicate it completely. What is it that you get with this new set premium? If they
Yeah.
decide, to go the route of like what does Siege call it? They don't call it premium. Season pass.
Season pass.
Yeah. Oh, but then you pay twice for it every season, and then next season you're gonna pay in next season. I don't know.
It's
Ultimately,
$20. It's not that bad.
but if the game spans
For-
as long as they're gonna
if it-
span it, it's gonna count up way more than even premium.
Yeah, but if it lasts for years, then you're getting your money's worth. Like, it ends up evening out if you're an avid player. And you don't have to buy it if you don't want to, because all the content is released for free anyway.
True. It's more the thought is there to support the devs.
Exactly. And if you're a diehard fan, you don't mind dropping $20 a year. That's not a big deal. Especially
Yeah.
not if you're going to pump 100 hours into it every year. That's well worth $20.
Probably more than 100, man.
Yeah,
I-
easily.
I'm not
You
the
mean
hugest fan
1,000?
of Rainbow Six, and I probably have 400 hours.
Yeah. So it ends up evening out in the end.
Okay, cool. I think we're ready to switch on over. Really good thoughts, guys. Mambo, take it away.
Yeah, as many of the people that are in the stream listening to the podcast right now know, coming up last week of April, we got a patch, a spring patch coming out. This may be our last of the larger patch ideas that DICE is taking on and splitting up into the more micro patches, which is what Izzy recommended as far as the maps, which take the patch idea and go into the maps idea even further, which I agree with Izzy on that totally. I would like to see that to keep the interest up. But we're going to be talking about today some pre-patch ideas and thoughts. There is a lot of patch to discuss, and Echo just put the link in there for you guys watching the stream. You could click on that link to see all the patch notes, but we're going to talk some of the highlights of the patch and three things that stood out in my mind. I just want to cover three things. There's a lot to discuss. Three things that stick out in my mind are our idea that we had here, I like to say in the podcast, of the medic spotting the person that's down to let them know don't respawn. We're going to come and revive you. The respawn, the medic patch, and then we also got the fighter plane nerf, the big highlight most people agree for, and
It's about time.
I don't care for it, but we got people that are disagreeing with me in the podcast. They like the patch. I don't care for it. And then the third thing is grenade spam.
Well,
And
you just don't care for the nerf to the plane, not the whole patch itself, right?
Right.
Right.
That's the part of the patch that I don't agree with. I don't think the planes get nerfed because I don't get killed by them enough. But
Oh.
that's
I get killed by planes. The only thing that can kill me on the battlefield is a plane or a tank, or a grenade. I'd never get killed by someone shooting me
well,
almost.
that's what Battlefield is. Rock, paper, scissors, no?
Or planes, tanks, and grenades.
So that's my three items that I want to focus on is the medic revive, the plane nerf, and the grenade reduction splash radius / refresh time you get your grenades, ammo 2.0, whatever you want to call it. Echo, what's your thoughts on some of those highlights that I mentioned?
All right, so first of all, they're addressing two of the main things I've had problems with this game. The grenades. It is a I'm thinking, everybody agrees that the spam is too much. They went in with ammo 2.0 that you magically reproduce grenades in your pocket, And Izzy, you're right, man. It's just it doesn't make sense. This is a game I've always said I love Battlefield for this reason. It takes realism and it takes fun, and it's right there in the middle where it's not too real and it's not too fake for the whole fun of it, as a game.
Yeah, exactly.
And Battlefield's been perfectly in the middle. Not too many games can say that they are. And the grenades, too much. So I love the fact that they're reducing their range in many of the grenades. If you look at the patch notes, guys, I'll link it once again. The grenades range are like getting reduced. Their damage is also getting reduced, right? In many aspects. For instance, there's one that says the AT grenades against standard soldiers is getting reduced by 10%. 10% might not seem like a lot, but if I can, see a grenade explode a decent distance away from me and I don't die, I'm at like 10 or 20, that's still like, okay, manageable. I can do something.
I think that's fair too there, because if you're an assault player, like you've got 3 grenades at that point, and if they're intended for anti-armor, they should do more against armor instead of just being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna chuck all those, throw them all in there at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you go
But do
fishing.
you think it will throw the game out of balance, though?
No.
Do you think medics may not be as important as they are now? It's going to affect something in the game.
I think
don't
it's
think
going to
that.
make
Is
medics
important.
even more important, because now
Yeah.
you're going to have people who will have at least 20 health, 10 health, because the grenades, their range is so reduced and their damage is so reduced, they may not be just a one-hit kill all the time now. So you might just have really people with low health everywhere looking for a medic.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna get at.
Or
Medics
maybe
now
medics
might be more
live
important.
longer now because they're not getting grenade spammed, and you'll have medics everywhere. What if
I'd
it's
I'd
the
be
other-
okay with that.
I think it's a better change for the game, and that's one of the first things I like jotted down, because I jot down some notes to make sure I talk about it. I just think it's great, and I'm a support player, and when they said grenades would just respawn out of thin air, I was like, well, I might as well put this box somewhere I don't even care, because no one's gonna go to it now, right? Like if grenade,
yeah.
who cares?
And-
I think it was Ammo 2.0 as a whole. I thought was a horrible idea. It had no place in the game whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think what they're doing with it now is good.
Yes.
And from my understanding of it, you kind of have like a running timer there after you throw one, and you don't magic one out of midair. But if you happen to go by an ammo crate, it refills instantly if it's been past whatever certain amount of time that is. Like that makes logical sense, and that does reward support players for playing their role as support. So that I like. The whole things pulling out of midair kind of thing, I didn't really care for. At the same point, and this is why I don't like it when devs make big kind of, in my opinion, that Ammo 2.0 thing is a pretty big change, because it's like you start getting used to it, and then all of a sudden it's gone, or it changes to something else, and it throws you off because just you feel like you just learned how to play the game again, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, well now I don't get to do that anymore. But I mean, I've been having a blast with it lately, but it has not reduced my grenade spam at all. So the changes in that regard are probably for the best.
I think it's funny you guys mentioned the word skill in the chat, because I know people don't regard grenades as skill, but I think there is some skill to where a grenade should be placed to get a kill, And I think
Absolutely.
these changes are making it so that your grenade placement has some sort of reflection of skill.
A little bit, but
You
they're
have to
not
be
nerfing it
you have to
too
be more
much.
accurate. Plus, you're not gonna get one all the time, so you're not just throwing them willy nilly because they're gonna come back.
Yeah. Well,
You
and,
still
and I
now need to find a
100%
pack. Yeah.
agree, like 100%. And it's like, if you're good with your grenade placement, like it does take skill to do that. And if you put it where it needs to be, like that's when you get those quad or triple kills with the grenades. And 95% of the time when you get those, like it's a direct reflection of I wanted to put that there and I did. So that's good. I don't have any problem with the changes, and I play as an assault player like 90% of the time. And quite honestly, it probably won't affect me that much because I put the grenades exactly where I want them to go. So
Zen
what?
Chewbacca says they should let us pick up grenades from dead people. You already could. If you pick up their kit and they haven't thrown a grenade, you get that grenade. So there's two little hidden things I looked at. First of all, we haven't talked about there's a throw delay to grenades now. You can't just pop one off like no problem.
Right.
Now there's a whole little animation like in Battlefield 4. If you go back to Battlefield 4, you try to chuck a nade, you're gonna be like, what is this?
Yeah, you had to like pull the pin and prime it for a second and then throw it.
Yeah.
The way it should be.
That's going to help with those cases where a guy turns and faces you and he knows he's going to die because he's 1 health. And
Yeah,
he just
so he
throws
just
a grenade
spams
down real
grenade.
quick.
Yep.
That
And
frustrates me.
you know what I've seen also?
I do
but
it
this
all
is,
the time
Yeah.
with the gas grenades, no less.
You know what?
It's just like built-in martyrdom. Like
There's
from the old CODs.
You know
It's
what's
horrible.
crazy? This has been in Battlefield 4, and not many people know about this. When you used to get the whole animation of frontal knife, and you're gonna get knifed back. You remember that? You can press the
Portable idea.
grenade. You could press the grenade button, and it drops a grenade right on the floor while you're in an animation. It was a glitch.
Yeah.
And if you lost that fight and he stabbed you, there's a nade right below his feet, and he wasn't gonna live. Pretty funny.
I would do that a lot, actually.
Yes,
Like, every
yes.
time.
So and it's still in Battlefield 1. I've killed people, and afterwards a grenade just fell on the floor after they died because they were chucking a nade while they were dying. It's crazy. But the other patch note thing that's really weird. Now they've increased the timer for you to get the said grenade, and then you have to go to a pack. So but if you buy a pack, it speeds it up. I think that system is what we need. Now the funny thing is now you can have 2 smoke grenades, and I don't know how I feel about that.
I think that's good because they're totally underused, and it's not like they damage you or anything like that. So,
But I feel like now we're gonna go and we're gonna see just people throwing
No,
these things. They
I doubt
resupply
it. No one
quickly.
used them to begin with, so I
Yeah.
doubt the spam is going to increase.
yeah, it's not like suddenly they're going to be everywhere because nobody values them, which is unfortunate because they are actually really useful in
Well-
a lot of different ways.
You guys know on the Verdun map on operations, smoke is the way to go if
Yeah.
you're attacking, right? I make my whole squad run smoke.
Me too.
We throw a whole line. I want a wall of smoke on that low wall to attack the first set of MCOMs.
That's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
You have to
what we
push
did
through
would counter
smoke.
that was just throw gas in their smoke, and it's horrible.
Yeah, and it's just you can't see anything, and that's the only way to move your team ahead and try to just put so many bodies and people just try to kill. That
You're
that
gonna
whole
see
map
that
is a
now.
mess.
Yeah, you're gonna see it really. You're really gonna see it now with double smoke. You're gonna have a fortress of smoke.
And I feel that that might be a problem eventually once you get into some like higher level play where people will pick smoke and you know they're higher levels and you're gonna see just a whole crap ton of smoke. And I know the next DLC is gonna have a thermal scope.
Wait,
Thermal
what?
scope.
No, I'm
What?
just joking. Remember Battlefield 4 with the thermal scopes and smoke?
But they're taking like notes out of Ubisoft's book. Gonna
Oh,
buff the snipers.
yes.
Give
they're
them all
gonna-
thermals.
they'll get thermal smoke and they'll throw that down. No, but Glass needed that on his. That's a whole other issue. So those are the things about the smoke.
Yep. And then I spoke about nerfing the planes. I got an 8-piece dropping the trench bomber kit in the fighter plane. It got me an 8-piece the other day on
That's
one
too
objective.
much. That's too effective.
That's
You don't,
insane.
Mambo. You don't think that's way too effective?
But I don't die from the planes when I'm on the battlefield that often.
I do.
Like,
half my deaths on Conquest are planes.
Then
like-
why didn't
literally.
they apply this same theory to the little birds of Battlefield 4? I was getting, if somebody's good in a little bird, they will rape the map. I have a buddy farmer
Yeah.
from Texas went 121
The
and
difference-
0 in the little bird.
The difference is that the choppers in that game had lots of counters. Lots
Yes.
of counters. You had tanks and LAVs shooting at you, boats shooting at you. You had the automatic AA turrets. You had every
Yes.
rocket launcher. You had auto
Stingers.
AA mines, stingers, iglas. People could snipe you out of the cockpit. There was a lot of ways to take out choppers.
And in Battlefield 1,
Yeah.
there is the AA guns, and that's
then
pretty
that's
much
it.
it. Because
Yeah,
you
and
know you're
then-
not going to get the AA truck because somebody else is
Right.
sitting on the
Camping in it.
opposite side of the
On the
map,
hill.
Some
sniping with it.
genius. You
They
know?
need to patch that. They need to make the tanks, make them move. If not, it disables them totally after like a minute. Something like that.
I don't know. I think you're not gonna be able to do that because then that's just gonna turn people off, Mambo. But what I think
Well,
what
they
they
gotta-
should do is
they gotta move.
give less points. If you're out there in West Boonies just sniping people with a tank, really detrimental to your whole team, less points. And to a tank driver, they should incentivize getting closer to the objective to get a majority of the points. So you get a kill out there, that's 50 points. You get a kill closer to the objective, 100 points. I'm sorry. But those guys won't care because they care about their KD more than they care about points or winning. That's why they're out there parked up there. But you know what?
Maybe it will. Maybe the patch will reduce some of that camping with the tank because the person in the artillery truck doesn't feel like they need to take the guy out in the plane so bad because they're so pissed because he got killed 10 times by that one guy, and all their mission for the whole map is to kill that guy out of the plane. So they don't want to camp.
I don't know. I mean, the fighter pilot was way too OP, man. Way too OP. The trench things were one-shot kill, and it's really hard to do things like that in an FPS game because one-shot kill, that leaves you with a really bad feeling. When that happens to you 3 times in a round, you're like, that's not cool. And that's happened to me many times when that trench thing comes by, boom, done. I can't do anything about them.
And the thing is, like, I can't be the only one who thinks this, but I feel like the planes need to be better balanced in general. Like the fighter plane should do significant damage to like a bomber or to the fighter bomber because its purpose is to be a fighter. Like that's what it is intended to do. It is not intended to be like a ground attack aircraft. Its sole purpose is to knock things out of the sky. So that's what its focus should be on. And it's like it still takes forever and a day when you're in a fighter to down, a bomber or a different aircraft. Like good luck trying to do it in one burst before your guns overheat. Like it's set up so you have to do it like twice.
Yes.
And that's just terrible. Like they're too OP. I'm sitting over here like, they can make all these changes to assault because I agree this is the throwing all the grenades in there. It's a little bit too much. Like I think the same thing needs to happen with the airplanes, and the pilots need to be like, you know what? If I'm really as good as I think I am, this little nerf shouldn't hurt me that much.
Right.
If you want to talk about skill, like there is definitely some pilots out there with some serious skill, and they're the ones who do really, really well. I just feel like that skill curve should be a little bit higher for them.
Yeah. All right, Izzy, you got any thoughts on pre-patch? Either.
I love the fact that planes are getting a nerf. It's not a massive nerf, but I definitely think it was needed to help out like the overall meta of the game because it was really imbalanced and just unfun as like an infantry player to run around to a flag and then just get killed over and over and over again by something that you don't have a counter to. I think it was pretty imbalanced, and at least they're taking steps to make it more balanced.
Yeah, I think so. There's just, like Flax said, there's just not a lot you can do against a plane. Other than the stationary turrets, which a smart player can strafe with those darts. You can take them out. And then you have free reign. And I, for one, I'm the weirdo with a support kit always trying to shoot them down. Whenever I see them, they come close to me, I annoy them so they go away. What does that really do? That just tells them, there he is, so they come back and they get me,
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you have no chance of taking them down before they do it either.
Yeah, I've taken down 2 planes in my whole 500 hours of gameplay already.
See, in like Battlefield 4 or something, if there was like a little bird who was like just destroying everybody, then the good players would automatically pull out RPGs. And if that guy came in for a run, you would just turn and shoot him out of the air. So they had to play cautious. And there's no equivalent to that in Battlefield 1.
There's no real counter.
If I still think like maybe the AT gun should be a one-hit kill versus planes.
Oh,
right. No, I mean, we've talked about that. Like, why isn't it?
You're able to do that.
I've done it so many times.
You should be able
and you get like a 30% hit. It's like, really?
Not even
Come
20
on.
or something.
Yeah,
like, I should have just whipped out the Calibri and shot at him that way. You do the same amount of damage.
Or if not, make it deal like 40, but like really disorient that plane. That plane needs to start spinning.
Or tanks too. Tanks can hit planes, and that still doesn't even always take them out. Like the bomber, it does like 50 damage. It's not an insta kill.
The bomber should be a little bit beefy, but like a fighter plane, that should go down. Or an attack plane.
Well, it should at least disable or something. It should do
like
damage.
Disable something. Like you can't start driving, and now you have to quickly try to rep or something. You know?
Yeah, but it doesn't. They just fly away. They're like, whoop, took a tank shell like a boss.
Yeah.
We'll just get rid of that tank.
Yeah. Oof.
Overall, though, I think the patch is coming out Tuesday. I think is
Yep.
it confirmed that it's going to come out this Tuesday, or do we know?
It is
I-
not
I'm not sure.
confirmed that I know of.
No, not that I know
Okay.
of either.
Once again, speculation, right, Flack? They haven't been clear to the community. It's going to be
would
later
think
this
a
month.
lot of that has to do with them getting it certified, right? In order to
Yes.
get it through everything. So I'm
Right.
sure they're probably
Yeah.
waiting on that.
They
But,
possibly
you know,
could, right?
the most important thing in the patch for me is that I will no longer be able to use the C4th Highlander. It will now be the C4th Highlander. Like it's supposed to
Oh,
be. You see, that's like number 4 on the general fixes. It's like, like
Yeah.
instead of it saying C4th Highlander, they changed it to Highlander now, so it's proper.
Yeah.
well, that's important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they got a bunch of UI stuff and netcode stuff. I didn't even really look through, but I feel like the weapon balance are the ones that are really more important.
Right. Maybe you could post that link again, Echo, in the chat for the patch notes, maybe one more
Sure.
time, in case somebody
I
wants
can
to
throw
see.
it up too.
Yeah, thanks,
The-
Izzy. Because I had one more thing I kind of looked at, and I was just kind of like, is this for real? Like, I wasn't aware. Apparently, they said fixed an issue with K bullets could hurt a tank 150 meters out. I thought that wasn't that intended. I mean, like the K bullet, like it doesn't deal like 100. It deals like 8. So if a tank is 150 meter plus and you snipe it with a K bullet, it deals no damage. Or it's supposed to not deal damage, because apparently they fixed the issue where it dealt damage. Well, I'm assuming that means it shouldn't deal damage at that range, which I'm confused by. It is a sniper. I mean, make yourself useful if you're gonna camp on that hill.
Right.
What do you guys think? Should it deal damage at 150? I think it should.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
They
is-
lose velocity. Bullets do lose velocity and foot pounds and all that
Right.
stuff, but
It's a game.
Yeah. yeah.
I
I guess
thought-
that's to reduce the amount of campers that want to just sit back and shoot vehicle. I mean, I do that a lot with the tank hunter class. I sit back and I pop those tanks from so far away and disable their tracks or disable
Yeah.
them. They're like, who's shooting me? Where?
Yep.
You make them move, right? I like to make them move. No, you got to move. You can't just sit there.
See, that's the thing. What I do, whenever I'm a sniper, I always keep my K bullets. And then when I see a tank park, because I know he's going to try to rep, so I try to give my teammates an opportunity to get closer. So I hit him with a K bullet just to be like, yo, you're not going to rep right now. But I make sure I wait a little bit, so he's annoyed. When it's like halfway done, and then he got to rep again, and like, oh, come on. All
You're
right,
like the bee stinging the bear.
for real.
Tormenting people.
All right, guys, I want to remind the chat, if you guys want to prep some questions for us individually or as the crew, as the cast. I remind people this because we are about to finish our last segment of the podcast. And at the end of all of our podcasts, what we like to do is something called a chat session, patented. It's a time and it's an opportunity for you guys to directly, right now, the live audience, ask us questions and get involved in a conversation. You've heard us talk about 4 interesting topics, things that pertain to Battlefield, ranging from, what should DICE do once the player base is dwindling a little bit, falling off. There's definitely things that they need to do is bring us together. Kind of reminds me of that community server thing. I would love for them to do that. Have a server browser with community things. It would bring things way better together. We also talked about future behemoths for all the DLCs. We talked about what does no season pass mean for Battlefront 2 when it comes to Battlefields. I don't know what they're gonna call it, 5. The next
Something.
Battlefield. Yeah, I mean it will have direct impact. I mean, Izzy, you're right. I
Bad
mean,
Company 3.
yeah, it's EA, it's DICE, the same devs, and they're working on a similar project, an FPS game. You can say it's a third-person shooter too, but it is a multiplayer online shooter. So it's in the realm of Battlefield. And then we talked about patch notes in depth, thanks to Mambo and the topic. So before I jump us into the chat session, I want to thank everybody for watching and everybody for bringing up the topic. Awesome discussions as always, guys. The other thing is, I'm going to start off this chat session with a fan email. And it's someone who wrote us, so I'll read it off real fast. But for those of you guys who are interested and you want to send us an email, you're not watching live, you can't participate. You can participate, I should say, by sending us an email. So the podcast email is called the Let's Talk Podcast at gmail.com. Okay. So let's read this off. This was an email we received from Scorpio. Goes by Scorpio_003. Says, hey crew, love the podcast and thanks for doing it. It's great for the community and brings awareness to players and DICE. It was brought up in the last podcast about DICE improving their community events, and this got me thinking that it would be great if the podcast crew hosted a community BF1 and even later a BF4 hardline event on a specific server on your own for the listeners, whether it be a monthly or even 3 months on a Sunday afternoon for a couple of hours. I'm sure he doesn't mean 3 months in a row. You can switch platforms for each event. This can be a great way to populate Echo server, give people a chance to save it as a favorite, to make it interesting, maybe change up server settings, all this other stuff. It will also be great for each podcast member to stream the event on their Twitch or YouTube channel. This sort of event will bring players together and something to look forward to. It will also get DICE's attention, hopefully give us console players a bigger voice when it comes to Battlefield. Just a thought, keep up the good work, let me know if I can help in any way. Scorpio, thank you. Thank you for writing that in. I think it's an awesome idea. I think it's interesting. I just want to comment on the last part where he says hopefully it'll get DICE's attention to focus on console players. And each of us, if you're listening, are all console players. Some of us own PC as well. Some of us own multiple consoles. And we've been majority gaming on consoles. So this is a perspective from a console Battlefield fan, all of us. So guys, I mean, what do you guys think?
We talked about that before, didn't we, Echo? Of squatting up together, all of us, and doing a once a month or whatever type gaming session to get the community involved. I think we spoke about that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard enough to get people to be here on the podcast all at the same time. I mean, it's so much difficult, so much more difficult than you guys imagine, because we are all. None of us are full-time gamers by any means. I know I'm not, and I know we've spoken before. This is something we do as a passion project. We love Battlefield. I can speak for everyone here from the discussions we've had. I for one, I remember having my own server and everything else, and I for one would welcome the idea. Just we need DICE to step it up on the server thing and before we can plunge into creating stuff like that. But I want to remind the viewers, there's a lot of cool things that we partake in when we have a chance, like DICE versus Community. I unfortunately don't have a link for him. Maybe I'll try to find out for the next episode. If you guys don't know, DICE versus Community, he gets together live streamers, YouTubers, and actual DICE developers and versus you guys. And in a lot of fun different games. Then there's Humans versus Zombies. It's another DICE versus Community kind of event. That's cool. I know I've taken part in it. Izzy, you have, right?
Yep.
And that's a cool thing. And you can always follow us on our Twitters. We usually tweet out if something cool like that's happening. So you can see the links below in a little section there, or at the end we'll talk about our links. But it is a cool idea, and I think, in the future maybe we'll put something together to play with you guys and on the different platforms and all that.
I think that's definitely a possibility, and certainly when we get Platoons live,
the
that'll help a
podcast
lot.
Platoon.
Yeah, we could do that.
All right, that's a cool idea. I mean, there's a lot of things that DICE needs to just do a little better with the whole community. Right now it's not a part of the server, the UI browser at all. There's no community aspect to it. It would be nice to have something there. That's a hopeful there, and I think it would be a step in the right direction for them. But thank you for writing in.
Okay, so we're going to take some comments and questions from the stream.
for sure, for the chat.
Okay.
Do we have a question? Mambo games all the time. Kappa.
I game more than I work.
You game more than you work? I probably work more than I game. As crazy
Yeah.
as it sounds. Frontlines is fun. All right, guys. Podcast Platoon can be promoted to general. Is Dice looking at the stream? Infamous minded? I think we've heard that some developers do tune in, and like you heard, one of the ideas is actually being implemented, and it's a great idea. We shared on this podcast about the medic,
Yep.
and here's the thing though. I mean, we could sit here, even us, we have frustrations with this game. We could sit here and we could just say, "Hey, man, this sucks." But when I conceived this podcast and when I talked to these guys about the podcast, all of us decided that we should take this podcast in a positive light and try to give Dice ideas of how to make things better. So, I mean, when we vent our frustrations, we vent our frustrations like you do. But the goal of the podcast is not to just sit here and say, yo, I'm mad. It's to sit here and have a discussion with not just us, people on YouTube, people on Twitch, but you guys as well, who watch us or who just play the game, who are just popping in on a podcast, and like do something constructive. Give them good ideas, because if we do, then there's a chance that they'll actually be like, wow, that is good, And sometimes I get the feeling that Dice can hear great ideas, but because of their tight schedule or whatever else, they might have to move on to a new game. They might not be able to implement it, So it has to be doable. And something small like what Mambo mentioned last time, like, hey, highlight him and just tell him I'm on my way. That might be a 1 week sit down, let's code this up, That might not be a whole month effort, So if we can think of these little things that can do awesome things for Battlefield, awesome.
Yep.
We got a question from The Death. Dice should make a movie about Battlefield.
I actually heard that they were supposed to be working on a TV show.
Yes.
They bought the rights to it. We don't know that much about it, but we do know it's like something that could happen.
Yeah,
So-
it's something there hasn't been news on that in months,
Yeah,
but they
I heard
they
about
did they did
How
make
did
it
the
sound like, hey,
Assassin's-
we are going to do something with that.
It
How
might
did
be
the
like a
Assassin's
World
Creed
War
movie turn
One
out?
sort of like Band of Brothers type thing TV show. Was my understanding of it.
World War One?
That would be my guess. Nothing's been confirmed or anything. Like we don't have lots of details, but that would be my speculation.
10 out of 10 would watch.
Huh?
That's always a good sign. All right. I mean, hey, that's pretty cool.
Especially if they gave it to like HBO or Netflix, it would turn out really well. I
Yeah.
would definitely look forward to that.
Or is he talking about making a movie about DICE versus EA, like a developer versus a publisher?
No,
Discussion,
he's talking
like
about just the
reality
game
TV
itself.
show. Is that what he's trying to say?
No, my God, you do not want to hear that. A reality TV show between devs and DICE versus EA. Get
Four
into
gamers
fights.
in the same house this summer. They all share the same bandwidth. They're getting in fights all the time. Install the NetDuma. Limit his bandwidth.
I don't know, but I think people would watch that. Infamous says, Eclomits, people need to stop complaining on the forums and post constructive topics to make things better. The nature of the forums. Oh boy.
Well.
It's like Reddit.
Yeah, I think people need to stop complaining in general because so much of it is just like, oh, that person killed me, so it must be unfair.
But I like to complain.
Like, what?
It does a lot for my own self-esteem. Yeah, there's things that you can complain about, but take what you don't like and see if you can suggest something. Because if you just take what you don't like and you make no suggestion, okay. You know what I'm saying? Rule number 1, don't believe everything you see on the internet. The internet never lied to me.
Not even
I,
once.
I think we had another thing. I think this one was from Nim. People respond to praise more than they do to negativity. Don't Dice won't even watch if a BF bashing session, but if it's a positive podcast, Dice will take notice. You know, it's not just that. I would also like, we all enjoy Battlefield as a community, and I'm not trying to make it a worse place for anyone else. And that's why I think about it more positively than most people.
It's like the guy that you get in the squad with you that always complains that the game's not running smoothly. You don't want to squad up with them.
Yo,
right?
Uninstall, man. Just uninstall.
Right. You're complaining more than I am, then I don't want to game with you.
You guys, if you have another question, just at someone. Zen Chewbacca says, at Flakfire, I think there's a cat on you.
Flax over there looking like the Bond villain, slowly petting the cat. He just needs the British accent now. He's got it down.
Dr. Evil.
Deuce says, Battlefield is the best gaming community I've been in. I remember starting out in the Battlefield community, and it wasn't as welcoming as I wanted it to be. But it
Well, I'm gonna say, like, in terms of other gaming communities, the Battlefield one is actually pretty open. I mean, I know it can be toxic at times, but compared to a lot, it's really good.
There's a difference between the content creators and the actual players. I thought the actual players were quite trolly, and then there was like a good amount of that. But I gotta say, the content creators, when we went to the events, everybody's really nice. Nobody's really like.
Well, there's
stuck
something
up.
to be said about meeting someone in person too. People are far more likely to be rude over the internet than they are face to face.
Oh, definitely.
As well.
Well, that's why I made this podcast a video podcast. So nobody's rude to me.
To show our lovely positive faces.
Yeah. And cats.
And cats. You
All right.
won't be quiet unless I do this, so I guess I have to.
Flanagan says, Cass, do you think aim assist is OP when using iron sights carbine on scout rifles?
I think aim assist is always OP.
But
Oh,
on scout rifles.
wait a
I
minute.
say
Aren't
remove
they
it
bringing
on
in an option
everything.
to turn it down? Oh, it's screen shake. They're bringing in an option to turn down the screen shake.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I think that's...
They're putting a slider bar on it, minimum 33%, right, on the patch notes?
Yeah, but then it becomes one of those things like, why would it be... That's a no-brainer. Turn it down. Who's going to play with it up? Maybe
Me?
like a live
I'm gonna put it
streamer
up
for
to like
fun?
300%.
I want to go. I want to feel the explosion. Like, who does this?
I want my screen to shake for the explosions in like the next server over. Like, that's how I want that.
Like
No, but
some-
I do think we're going to find ourselves getting hit a lot more because of less screen shake. I do think.
I wouldn't really say that. I mean, screen shake is there, but it wasn't that impactful.
Ooh, but there might be a small percentage of an increase there. If you'd ask me, as a result of this, what will happen next? I would say Mambo's right.
Maybe, but I don't think it'll be enough to really notice like a big
It might
difference. or
not.
anything.
Yeah, it might not. It might be negligible, but still. Aim assist is pretty OP. When it comes to scout rifles, it's a little bit more of unfair because when they hit, they straight up hit 70 and up.
Yeah, but if you like look at the automatic or shotguns, it just snap aims to people. I mean, just aim it in their general direction, ADS, and it just snaps right to them, and you melt them. I'm
Yeah.
not for the whole snap aim thing. I'm okay with like slow down when you go over them to help
Yeah.
aim on console, but snap
Mhm.
aim does not need to be there.
You know,
Right.
I was watching a Twitch streamer, Fizzer, is a good friend of mine, and he put it together in a good way. He was just kind of like saying like, Dice, you know, why don't you believe in me? You know, like just let the community, believe in the community that they're just gonna get good. That's it, man.
Well, judging by Battlefield 1,
like
I
their
don't think
kid.
they believe in us.
Yeah, and we're like their kid. We're riding that bicycle. We've had the training wheels. You know, they're trying to put the training wheels on the
They
on the whole
added
community.
extra training wheels.
Yes.
They gave us
and they're
2
like,
more.
yo, it's time. Let me fly.
They've bubble wrapped us, all right? They're like the overprotective mom.
Yeah,
You've got bubble wrap, 2 helmets, knee pads, the works.
Yeah, I agree with that whole aim assist is a little bit powerful there.
Question comes from Beckford Gaming. He thinks, do you think Star Wars Battlefront will replace Battlefield 1? And are you hyped for it? Yes, I'm very hyped for it. Do I think it will replace it? Not if there's more DLC that follows the relaunch of Star Wars Battlefront.
I think it will take some players away, but a lot of the people who are like, maybe history junkies or something, Star Wars isn't going to be as appealing to them. But I definitely think a chunk of Battlefield players will migrate over inevitably to Star Wars. But I don't think it'll take away like that diehard core audience. But their numbers might be affected for sure.
Oh yeah, it's going to be affected by a big shot. I'm
going to be grinding Star Wars. The first month I'll be on Star Wars like crazy.
I suspect 75% drop off. Like if there's, whatever the player base is at that moment, Battlefront 2 comes out the next day, 75% of those people are going to be playing
let's look back at Battlefield 4 and Star Wars Battlefront 1. How was Battlefield 4 affected?
It was affected quite a bit, actually. For a while, but then the players came back. That was the thing. Star Wars dropped off, Battlefield 4 player base came back. Right. Now, the question is that going to happen again with Battlefield 1 and Star Wars Battlefront? Or are people just going to leave Battlefield 1 and continue to play Battlefront? I think that depends on whether or not they support the game in the long run, how balanced it is at launch. But those are things we're just going to have to wait and see.
Or does a controversial patch come out 10 days after launch of Star Wars that makes people, all the competitive guys, leave it and go back to Battlefield 1? I don't know.
Well, I don't think that the competitive guys are at Battlefield 1 to begin with right now.
No. Let me tell you guys some interesting news. I got in touch with someone I've met once before. Codenamed Deuce does a lot of stuff for competitive Battlefield. And if you really are passionate about competitive Battlefield, check out this link right here. I double spammed it in there. And there's going to be like a totally separate from DICE EA a league for Battlefield, and I'm kind of excited for it. It looks really well done. They have a whole mess of teams signed up, and I look at all these team names, and I remember a lot of these names from Battlefield 4. So there's a lot of deep community-driven competitive scene brewing underneath the surface. All we need is a better server options in the vein of like let's please have passwords, because all this hangs on DICE and them like having passwords. So how are you gonna do this without password protected server? I don't know, but it seems like that they're building something really cool in there. Check it out, hit that link. Pretty darn awesome stuff. So there's competitive even in Battlefield 1. The question is like Star Wars Battlefront, I for one am hyped. Can we get some hands up in there? Hands up in the chat too if you're hyped. You guys are hyped, Mambo, Flak? We lost Flak? He just said no. I am not interested.
No, I'm interested.
Oh, we lost your cam.
Is it gonna...
We lost your cam.
You lost my cam?
There we go.
He's finished.
You just didn't want to go... Listen. He didn't want to go on record as hand raised for hype. I feel you. I'm really hyped. I truly am, because all the things I did not like about Battlefront 1, they're all getting changed. The whole card system, gone. Pickups.
The whole maps behind premium, gone. That's got me like, whoa.
Hero pickups and like no classes, gone. We're getting classes and heroes are gonna be like a whole thing of its own. We don't know 100% yet, but I think that's gonna be better. I don't want to go randomly to something and pick up a hero. Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of exciting stuff like going to Battlefront 2. I just want them. Look, the gunplay in Battlefront was amazing. You guys remember the early days of Battlefront? Like the guns, they fired pretty awesome. I love the gunplay. The look and the sound of the game was amazing. Like I've never seen such good graphics back then.
Maybe we should have a Star Wars Battlefront podcast one day.
Yo, we probably will, man. It'll be called Let's Talk let's talk Battlefront.
Star Wars.
You know, but I'm excited. I think what they did change looks the same. Like looks to be just so much better. I meant to say, not the same, because the whole addition of a storyline and it's canon and it's something we've never seen. I'm a Star Trek fan.
The story is what I'm excited for.
Yo, me too. Plus, like the fact that it's a story from the Empire.
Yeah, and they're going to cover 3 different time frames of Battlefield of Star Wars. Like they're covering Clone
Flag.
Wars, right? They're covering the Empire era, and
Yo,
then they're
Flag, your
covering
cam
this new.
keeps coming out. You got
I
the
think
cam.
I think the camera is focusing on the cat.
I don't know. And now we don't hear him.
I muted it so you don't hear him meowing in the background.
Man,
Oh,
I don't
it's
mind
okay.
him now.
We don't mind.
So no, we're excited and I'm hopeful, and I think it's gonna be great.
Well, and you mentioned that they have the point of view from the Empire. I was really hoping to see in Battlefield 1, I was hoping to see something from the German side or something from the Austro-Hungarian side, or something that is like, hey, they're not all evil people. They had to deal with their own kind of issues and stuff. Like
Right.
that would have been great. Like some of the best stories told about from either of the world wars are done from the point of view of the Germans, for example. If you look at World War II and Das Boot, if you've ever seen Das Boot, it's from the point of view of German submariners in World War II, and it's just like gut kick after gut kick after gut kick, but it is a fantastic narrative, and it's really, really memorable. And so that's why I'm excited to see. I want to see if they can get me to sympathize with the Empire in Battlefront 2, and if they do that, I'll be really impressed.
I think that is a missed opportunity, and I've always said that with all these DLCs coming out, they should have just made like an hour-long, single player coming out too, which is so much cooler. But that's on their DICE. If they want to make it, they could, and possibly like not a lot of people would play or whatever, maybe not. But what it is cool is the person who's writing the single player story for Star Wars Battlefront. You guys know who that is, right?
Amy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that same person. What's that famous game everyone loved? I haven't played it.
The Last of Us.
Did he also do that?
Was it? No, no.
No. It was the other game.
There's a lot of games, man. You gotta narrow it down a little bit.
There's an FPS game that everyone regards as the best story for like single player story ever. No, man, chat, help me out here. You guys know what I'm talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Level Cap just did a video too. He mentioned his name. Why am I blanking?
Yeah, but didn't Amy Hennig work on Star Wars Battlefront 2?
I don't know. I think it's a guy.
She is.
Yeah, Flack is gonna hit us with the facts. We have one
I'm
more question
Googling
here.
it.
We have one more question here that I saw and I wanted to escape. Riley Cole says, "Crew, do you think the COD community that BF1 picked up will go away with the new go away with the way COD is looking this year? Because you think it looks good, that you think that they're gonna go back to Call of Duty."
The formula is still going to be the COD formula. So if you don't care for that formula,
if they seriously change up the meta of Call of Duty, then there's the potential. Now, do I think that's gonna happen? No, probably not. But if they nail it and they make like an incredible World War II game that's very well balanced and has lots of content, I think that could hurt Battlefield 1 drastically. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but it could happen. That's the point. And I definitely think that will also hurt Battlefield 1's player base as well. People, at least for a little while, will go and play that game. Not everybody, of course, but some people for sure.
It was Walt Williams, and he wrote Spec Ops: The Line.
Yes, there you go.
That was an okay game. It was a good story.
Everyone said the story was like the best.
It was very good.
Gameplay-wise, not so much, but the story was good.
And so this is very interesting that same person is writing the single player, and that's got me excited because the single player looks so good for that Star Wars game. And I guess I like sci-fi, but I'm a Star Trek fan more than Star Wars, but I watch all the movies.
Oh.
No, you guys aren't Trek fans?
No, not my deal. Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica.
A Mystery Science Theater that's kind of space-based, right?
You're just
If you're saying
sarcastic.
so.
All right, awesome. I think we've answered a lot of your questions, guys, and we try to keep the podcast to about an hour and a half of a discussion. We don't want to just drop like a huge file in your sub box, whatever, on iTunes. So I want to say we're going to close it off over here, and I want to thank everybody who just came out to have this discussion. Over 100 people through, and that's pretty amazing that you guys do share the love that we have. So we're gonna go around, give us our sign-offs, and starting with Izzy.
Guys, it's been a pleasure as always. If you want to check out some of my content, it's youtube.com/IzzyGoneCrazy.
Then Mambo.
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. It's been great. Next podcast, we'll probably be talking about all the things that the patch has affected us with. And you can check me out on Twitch TV _Mambo_B.
And Flak.
Yeah, if you guys want to learn more about potential behemoths like we talked about earlier in the episode, got a good video on the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Flakfire Gaming, and cover all kinds of historical stuff. There'll be I got some really awesome stuff I'm planning for next month. That's all I can say. It'll be like knock your socks off amazing.
All right.
If you like history stuff.
Dude, I love history. I really do. Me as always, I'm Echo Limits on twitch.tv, so you can search me up there and all that other stuff. I want to thank everybody for watching, and to remind people, if you are watching or listening on iTunes, you could do both. Please do rate us because it does help the podcast get discovered and things like that. And I like to read the things that you guys have. Maybe if you have a suggestion that might improve the podcast overall, would be awesome. You can shoot us an email. The email is the Let's Talk Podcast @gmail.com. If you're listening to the recording, we'd like to hear what you have to say about our conversation. Would be awesome. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for episode 9.